how often do you come to the studio? And
I try to get here every day. Sometimes I just stare at the wall for an hour and then leave, but sometimes that turns out to be the most productive.
so true. So
Yeah.
behind you, is that acrylic that you're using?
Yeah, so these are there's some of them have a little bit of pastel in them, but
Oh my goodness, look at that.
yeah, they're yeah, acrylic on aluminum composite panel. Yeah.
Oh, aluminum. Oh, so it's not canvas. Like,
No, it's like a it's plastic in the middle and then it's aluminum shell on either side. It's like a sign. I used to work as a sign maker for quite a few years, and
mhm.
it's a fun substance to work on. Um, and like I put it so it floats off the wall like 3/4 of an inch, kind of has a
Nice.
neat effect.
No, that's amazing. How do you take your photos though? Because, capturing a moment or a painting or an image off a wall is so difficult, and then putting it on digital to match it, give or take.
Yeah. I used to use a DSLR
Yeah.
camera, but the iPhones are so good now that I sometimes I'll just use my iPhone.
And then just
Um,
crop it.
yeah, and just crop it, and you can kind of adjust the uh, so if it's a little bit skewed, you can adjust it in Photoshop pretty easily.
All right. So this is your website.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. I like how simple it is as well, by the way.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There's a complexity to it, yet there's this graceful simplicity, which is beautiful. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
my pleasure. So, art, how did you get into that? And obviously, you're a big component of your artwork is in mental health, and especially what you stand for, and whether it's writing or artwork. How did that happen, and how were you able to get out there and showcase who you are?
Art with mental health advocacy. Um, yeah, I try to be active on Instagram. Just telling my story with the hope to decrease some of the stigma surrounding these issues.
Sure.
Um, yeah,
John, what's your story?
well, so I started acting when I was younger. That led to music, and then music led to graphic design, and then graphic design led to visual work. I went to ACAD, now AU, for a few years, and then I got quite sick and ended up having to drop out of art school. And that was yeah a, one of the first big hurdles in my life. Yeah, and since then I've struggled with things like psychosis and anxiety and depression. I have a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. Um, yeah, so it's been a road with lots of ups and downs, but
In a journey.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, indeed, yeah.
How did you realize that, I'm not okay? Because oftentimes we might just think, maybe it's something that happened to us, an
Hmm.
external thing. Someone cut us off on the road, and that's why I snapped.
Hmm. Yeah, I never. I, yeah, I think at first I kind of thought, well, I'm just an artist. This is just how artists are. We're just a bit off the wall. But
Yeah.
my first hospitalization when was kind of a big wake up call as to um, the just what the cards I've been given. I don't think not all artists are mentally ill, but there's definitely seems to be some sort of relationship between um, creative types and people who also deal with mental illness.
Prior to being diagnosed, do you feel that you had some struggles? And what were some of the episodes that you had that made you say, you know what, I need to get figure out what's going on in my life?
Yeah, I think depression was always lingering, and then from that depression, some self medication. Um, but it never came to um, to be a big issue until, like I said, my first hospitalization. Um, so yeah, it was just like I said, I kind of just thought, well, yeah, I may be a bit different, but that's okay. It's not affecting my life too poorly. And if just by self-medicating, that was working. Like I like to say, like if you're self-medicating, there's a problem you're trying to solve. You might not be using the right tools to solve, but there's an issue. So I think just being a pretty sensitive guy, I think culture is not set up in a way to to that it makes it easy for the sensitive types.
But you
Yeah.
know what? It's brave that you're just able to say, I'm struggling, because oftentimes, yeah, you can get caught up in substance abuse such as drugs or
Hmm.
alcohol.
Hmm.
For myself, it was alcohol, and you look back and you realize, what was I doing to myself? I was so hard on myself.
Hmm.
But taking those first steps, and oftentimes, other people will say you should do it, but it's up to us, right? That
Hmm.
that path is our own choice to figure out how we can cope and maneuver through this one life we have, this one journey, as peacefully as we can.
Hmm. Yeah, well
In
said.
there,
Yeah.
right? It's to keep that calm up there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Have you been able to tame it and control things now, or do you still feel like it can erupt?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at a place in my recovery where relatively stable. I still struggle with some mild psychosis symptoms, but I'm on a good regimen with my doctor, and I have a really good support system. Like my family is really supportive. Yeah, I'm at a point where I'm not like I haven't been hospitalized in quite a few years, which is really positive.
What's really awesome is, like, you and I can sit here and talk about mental health and the issues openly, rather than when you look at our grandparents' generation or even parents' generation, it was taboo or looked down upon. And I think
Hmm.
now more than ever, when we come out there with stories and can share some of the life lessons that we've learned, don't you feel it's a load off yourself, and it's also something that you can put forward that hopefully other people can realize, hey, you're not alone in this. Like, we all
Hmm.
have issues. Maybe some are better than to keep it to themselves, but we
Hmm.
all do, and it's okay.
Yeah, totally. I think we've come a long way, certainly with things like anxiety and depression. Um, I think the word psychosis still uh, brings up a lot of alarm bells for people,
Well, why don't
but
we do this? What is
yeah,
psychosis? What was
yeah.
psychosis to you?
So, so I think like when people hear the word psychosis, they think of psychopathy, which is like a lack of empathy, or you think of the Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho, of like the violence, sociopath sort of character. But psychosis really just means a disconnect from reality. So um, you have a wrong belief, and
Mhm.
then you're sure that it's the right belief. But I mean, it gets complicated, like, yeah, who's to say what's a right and wrong belief? Because a lot of beliefs, they lack the criteria to be right or wrong. They're unfalsifiable, right? So I've had some experiences which, felt like deep, sort of spiritual connections, and I wouldn't necessarily use the word psychosis, but someone else may have the same experience and be like, oh no, that's nonsense, like that's psychosis. So it does get a bit tricky defining the word. Sometimes I wonder if we need a better understanding, or to kind of change what the word means, or if we just need a different word altogether. Like my mentor at CMHA, she likes to talk about these states as being altered states. So they deviate from the norm. Like there's certainly not. But then what's a normal headspace? I mean, it's kind of a problematic.
That's the thing. You go back and say, what is normal? I mean,
Yeah,
peace
yeah.
is something that's interesting to me, what we all strive for. Like you said earlier on, creativity has a little bit of craziness to it. You need to be out of the box to feel, to see, to imagine. what that world is uniquely to you. It's remarkable to see that where you've come, and the beauty that you can create. That I don't even know where you think of these things.
Yeah,
Like
fair enough. Yeah.
like your even your home screen on your website. This, by the way, for the listeners, johnfgerrard.com. There is, what is that, John? That I'm
Uh,
seeing here.
so I like to think of these as intuitive diagrams.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily referencing anything in the quote unquote real world. Um, so they're just symbols that have come to me, I guess, organically. Um, yeah, it's meant to be a lot of my work is meant to be sort of a speculative zone to just explore different visuals, and then as well as ideas with the text based
Right.
pieces.
It almost reminds me of like the caveman era and a story you might be telling in here. But it's again,
Sure, yeah, yeah. I think the more work I do, the more kind of pieces to the puzzle. Um,
mhm,
Things, I think if you look at my work as a whole, there's certain themes, and like even just the simple shapes of like I'm fascinated with how like angles and curves can coexist. Um, yeah.
no, that's amazing. And when you draw these, is this on pencil or what is this on?
So a lot of the contour drawings I do with pencil on paper, and then I bring them into the computer and modify them digitally.
Oh wow. So you'll draw it, take a picture of it,
Hmm.
and then do you go on Photoshop or what do you use digitally?
Yeah, anything with color, or I shouldn't say that. Like that piece with the pink and the blue, that's brought into Photoshop and then inverted and then made symmetrical. There's like a dual aspect symmetry, I like to call it, where it's symmetrical vertically and horizontally.
Hmm.
And then anything with paint, I don't modify in the box, so to speak. Um, that's done all on the panel or on the canvas, and then I try to reproduce it as accurately as possible when I bring it into the computer.
This is beautiful work, by the way.
Oh, thank you,
Oh
appreciate it.
my goodness. It makes you think, which is something that, oftentimes we don't see. And I've been oil painting and acrylic painting for years. It's been
Oh,
kind of
okay.
an escape for me, and I started picking that up again. Yeah, what was it? Got sober November 25th, 2020. So I think in mid-January I picked up painting again at home, just doodling
Hmm.
around, and it frees you, doesn't it? There's something about artwork and being creative that gets us out of our head. Not for everybody. Some people like doing other activities, but
Hmm.
this is something that was meant for me, and it worked. And obviously, it works for you. Do you feel free when you get things out of your mind?
Yeah, and I mean sometimes I'll be working on a piece and I'm not thinking. It gives my hands something to do, and then it allows my mind to kind of just dance around different things, and so it's I'm not necessarily thinking about anything that's related to what's on the canvas, but
Hmm.
and then other times it's like a very active uh, conceptually, where I'm thinking about the words I'm writing, and
Sure.
um, but yeah, there's something very meditative about art. I think and also dynamic, really. Like it can be so many different things for so many different people, um, and I think that's quite lovely.
John, you wrote a book. We make clocks, not time. How was that, first of all, for an experience as an experience to write a book, and how has it been perceived out there?
um, I think it's going pretty well so far.
It's a
I
great book,
as
by the way. Thank you for
Oh, thank
sending
you.
me that PDF.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah. It was a real blast to write. Like I a lot of these ideas I think I've been wrestling with for a number of years, but I sat down and in like a 10-day period wrote the bulk of it, and I did modify it quite a bit after that, but um, it's just a lot of fun to think about um, ideas that relate to creativity and psychosis, and um, yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I hope it helps bridge the gap between like the doctors and the patient, because like right now a lot of the writing on psychosis is quite clinical, and it doesn't really capture that lived experience aspect. So this is my story, you know, and also like the ideas and philosophies that
Mhm.
have kind of helped me along the way.
How have you been able to separate reality and perception, or what you're imagining versus reality? And then how do you now figure out what is real, what's not? Um, what can I take from my imagination and apply it to my reality?
Yeah, I think cognitive behavioral therapy has been really huge for me. So and that's meta thinking. So like stepping back from your thoughts and observing them, and I guess just being critical with our intuitions, you know. And I think like so sometimes, yeah, like just because like we all get those like gut feelings, and like a lot, you know, they can be right but they can also be wrong. So
Oh, yes.
I think dealing with psychosis has maybe made me a bit more cynical than than, than others, but
But you know what? You're
uh
so right on that, that where people would have thought when you think psychosis, you think psycho, you think crazy, you think, oh my God,
mhm,
afraid.
oh yeah, totally.
So true. That stigma.
Yeah, it's a lot of stigma, and it is a scary thing to go through, and I think it's hard for family members, um you know, when because you know, like, if you're well, sometimes when you're psychotic you're scared, and well, a lot of times you're scared, and so when people are scared they can be erratic, um
So you mean
but it's
scared paranoia?
yeah, paranoia and just not knowing what's going on,
Mm.
um and I think, but but like my mentor, she said once that you don't just wake up and you're psychotic. Like um I think we need to learn how to deal with these things before they get to that point, you know.
So
um
you're saying it's nurture, not nature. So it is past trauma.
oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I don't know I don't know, but
Yeah,
I think it's probably both. Like I
yeah,
think if you have to have the genetic propensities, and then you also have the environmental factors which activate the genetic propensities. That's
mhm,
my hunch. I don't think it's all trauma or all genetics. I think it's kind of a perfect storm of
mhm.
the two, you know.
Do you think what
Yeah.
happens is, everyone's individuals, and there's only so many times someone can get hit, say bullying, uh, emotional damage, depression, whatever it's going, like trauma is one of them. And then there's that breaking point, that threshold, and that is the moment where it flips to psychosis. Is that true, or that's not how it really works?
Um, yeah,
Like,
like
what
some
was it for
people,
you? I guess that's better.
yeah, I mean, I experienced bullying, some trauma, but then there was also environmental factors like my cannabis use, which likely weren't very helpful. Um, so I think everyone's kind of different,
Mhm.
but I think there comes a point where yeah, where we could only take so much. Like my first psychosis, I had some close friends who passed away. I had three assignments due at school. I was playing three musical shows. Um, there was just there's a perfect storm of like environmental bullshit, you know. But but then I think I was also born with like the genetic propensity for that stress to activate. You know, like I don't think, like not everyone who's super stressed out is gonna have a nervous breakdown, but
But that
I
happened to
had
you.
yeah, I had a nervous breakdown or a psychotic break. Which, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like you kind of want to call it a nervous breakdown because it sounds a little bit more a little bit more acceptable. Yeah,
It's so true. It's so true. When you
yeah.
look at what you went through or the psychosis, nervous breakdown, what were some of the characteristics or things that were happening? So was it violence? Was it I don't want to get out of my room? What exactly?
Yeah, I was never violent. You know, I did get to a point where I was almost a danger to, I was like borderline suicidal, so a danger to myself. So I guess violent towards myself, but never violent towards others. But just sorts of ideas like that my art had special powers, or like, you know, the police were after me. Just sort of like narratives that had me elevated or degraded from the actual role I was playing in society.
That voice in our head. It's a powerful one, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It can oftentimes lead us into areas we don't want to be and feelings we don't want to feel. Looking back, now that you've put in the work and it's never done, it's every day's a journey, right? Have you found peace?
I found peace in the process
Yeah.
of art, I think. Like I yeah, I'm like, some people ask me like, well, what's your inspiration? And I well, it's kind of more of a compulsion really. But like it's as far as like as medication goes, there's not too many bad side effects, you know. So um yeah, I not like I said, like I have a really supportive family, so a balance between um like I think one of the worst things that
Mhm.
can happen with mental illness is people get disconnected and isolated from their communities. And I, like wellness is really, it's about, well, when we're well, we're connected with our communities. I guess that's what I mean to
Right.
say. Yeah.
When we're well, we're connected with our communities. And when we're not well, we're alone, we're depressed, we're
Hmm.
yeah. It's like our voice and whatever we're going through corners us in and says, stay there. The
Yeah. Well, and you believe the narratives that you've made for yourself, and then but a lovely thing can happen when you connect with people. You can say like, well, of course I'm a piece of shit, and then your friend's like, well, no, you're not a piece of shit, like you're a good man. And then you, and that starts challenging your the stories you're telling yourself about yourself, you know.
Mm.
And that's important.
Well, I want to tell you, you're not a piece of shit, John.
Thank you. You seem pretty good too.
It's like a daily journey of mental health, and I think that word, though, we need to talk about it a little more than just on the Bell Let's Talk Day, where everyone says, "Hey
Hmm.
guys, mental health. We need to all just we're here for you." No, well,
Hmm.
are you really accepting mental health? Is there really um, bridges and programs out there for individuals that are struggling? Because oftentimes it's that first step.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
not when you're in the program. I think that itself is a journey, but I think it's that initial step of you telling you that, okay, I need help.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then the system needs to be designed that a little easier for people to enter in.
Hmm.
Because if I called, I don't know, say, I'm happy that we have a 211 number now, but I don't want to wait on the phone. I don't want to be number 5002. Okay, press 1 for this. No,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
I'm going to break down even more. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's how do we find a way to say yes, if someone is struggling, the world accepts it a little more, and that person can at least deal with those issues prior before getting into that like you said, psychosis. Can we deal with things prior to leading to that moment of snapping?
Yeah, absolutely. I think yeah, fighting the stigma is huge. Like, because if you, like, no one wants to be that gap, that, you know, that labeled and suffocated by that label, you know, of being mentally ill, you know. But if we realize that it's not the end of the world to have a mental illness, if we realize that it's not, um, that it's something that that is treatable. But I like what you said, because I think that first first step is reaching out, but we got to make sure that when people would reach out, that there's something that there's a step after that works, you know.
Hmm.
And sometimes it takes it, you know, you like I've tried different medications, different doctors. And it's not like the first time I reached out, it was all of a sudden, you know, a solution. Like it's a real process, and I think some people get luckier than others.
For sure. Oh no, you know what? That is something. But you gotta. The doors are presented to us. It's up to us. Whatever someone is struggling with, it's up to us to say, "I'm ready. I need this
Hmm.
change,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna call myself out on my own bullshit because I'm tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired."
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a bit of a paradox with choice, I think, with mental illness, because if you accept the fact that you have choice, you're kind of opening the doors for guilt and shame and blame. But then if you accept that you have choice, you also have a potential way out of your situation.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, I write about that in the book because I think the relationship between free will and mental illness is really like controversial, yeah, but
Mhm.
interesting.
Crowded heart. This image. What made you think about it? And say, for example, how did you get inspired by that?
So each gesture is meant to be like a yeah, a quick gesture of a figure. Um, so with this one, it's meant to kind of all the figures together is meant to kind of form sort of an abstract heart. So yeah, with the crowd drawings, I like to think about how, you know, the individual defines the community, but how the community also defines the individual. Um, so yeah, there's that. And
What are some of your pieces that really have stood out to you? I mean, of course, everyone is near and dear to your heart.
mhm.
Like some of these ones, like my goodness,
Thanks. Yeah, the text-based ones are really fun.
they do look.
Yeah, like a lot of fun. I think some of my favorites, yeah, my favorite genre, so to speak, would be the text-based, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
even this one. I mean, algorithmic gesture. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you would take a piece of paper, use different colors of ink, and
Hmm.
then transfer it to Photoshop. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, so this one's on Canvas actually. But yeah, I'll photograph it and then bring it into Photoshop. I didn't really modify this one
Hmm.
from the Photoshop.
The
Um,
original sold.
mhm.
Do you have any original work here for sale?
Yeah, if you go to original is available, there you
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have more than this. I need to update the website. Yeah,
for sure. Oh my
but
gosh.
that's probably one of my favorites. Ship of Theseus. It's based on an ancient Greek thought experiment.
Okay.
So the idea is if you replace a ship bit by bit, at what point is it a new ship? So yeah, good
So
commentary on
if you're
identity.
sorry, if you replace pieces of a ship bit by bit, at what point is it a new ship?
Yeah, so is it like the first change you make? Is it something new? Then you think like, okay, if I have a cup of coffee in the morning, am I a new person? Well, I don't know. It's one of the oldest thought experiments in philosophy. It's a fun one.
So before we get going, this will be a cool little soundbite. Is ship of thesis? What exactly is that experiment, and what made you learn about it and say, "Hey, let me utilize this"?
Yeah, so Ship of Theseus, okay, Ship of Theseus, an ancient Greek thought experiment. The idea is if you replace a ship bit by bit, at what point is it a new ship? Um, yeah, I think it's an interesting prompt for thinking about identity and how, yeah, like what makes a bit? You know, like are there a ship's made of planks, it's made of sails, it's made of all sorts of different things. Um, and yeah, also like yeah, just thinking about identity and how that relates to humans.
For
Yeah.
sure. And then utilizing that analogy in life and for yourself, where did you see the juxtaposition?
Um, Well, I'm not sure if there's like an actual unified thing called me, or like a unified thing called the ship, like we kind of decide when there's a new ship or an old ship, or so like
When that ship has sailed.
yeah, so
Yes.
like it's all very, I think life is a lot more gray, and like I like the idea of ourselves being this sort of like nebulous concept where we um
More like matter, would you say?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't, I'll have to think about this one and get
Oh,
back to
okay,
you.
done deal.
No, it's all good. Sometimes like I wonder, it's like, who is this guy? The people are thinking like, who is this guy? So, I don't know.
No, no. That's amazing. Well, looking forward to meeting you one day, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you for
I
being
appreciate you
open.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for making the space for this.